Alright, what is going on YouTube? Running on Sports back here with another video. Today is our Las Vegas Raiders off-season team review. The Raiders, yep, a lot to talk about this year. Not a very good season, and we got a lot to talk about, and it's going to be exciting to talk about. So, as always, please leave a like down below, subscribe, share this with your friends, and follow our social media pages at runningun_sports on Instagram and at runningunsports on TikTok. Wrapping up the AFC for our off-season team review type of videos. Then we'll be switching over to the NFC, and by the time those are all done, it should be football season again. Crazy, and can't wait for that week one of the NFL season. And college football season is just gonna be awesome time. Right now we have playoff basketball going on right now. The Bucks absolutely demolished the Heat last night, and they are now leading the series 3-0. The Lakers took the lead in that series 2-1, and the Nuggets defeated the Trailblazers, and they currently lead the series 2-1 as well. And then tonight we have the Knicks versus the Hawks, and Nets versus Celtics, and Clippers versus Mavericks. And there's been some rowdy basketball fans during the playoffs lately. Trae Young was spit on during the playoff game in New York, and yes, spit on, you heard me right. Very New York is not a big fan of Trae Young, and it's obvious. Some chants in the crowd, and just very interesting, and some passionate Knicks fans, but that's a little over the top, spitting on Trae Young. Fan was indefinitely suspended, and also Russell Westbrook was had popcorn thrown at him as he was leaving the court with an injury late in the game while they were trailing, and that fan was also suspended. So some crazy fans right now. Maybe COVID, they forgot how to act. Who knows? But like I said, we're talking about the Raiders today, so let's get right into it. As always, share this too with your friends, and let's go. The Raiders went 8-8 in 2020. Five of their 8 losses were to playoff teams, including the 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And 5 of 8 of their losses were also by less than 1 score. 9 of 16 games played were lost by 1 score or less, and that's just really unfortunate. The Las Vegas Raiders, obviously, that's not good at all, because if they had won, half of those games, they would have been in a playoff position possibly if they had won 10 games versus 8 games or 11 games. But if they had won all those games, they would be a 13-3 team. But not saying that they should have won all those games, but just saying if they did. But if you give them half the games, we'll give them 2 games, they're a 10-win team. They're in the playoff hunt this year. This year, though, we saw the Miami Dolphins not make the playoffs as a 10-win team. Very competitive division this year, but obviously I think that would have helped them out a ton, and they would have had way better season. And they weren't what their record said they were this year for sure, and I don't think there's any argument about that at all. And they just underperformed in some games, and some games that they really should have beat some teams way more than they did, and it was bad. Like the Jets, came down to a Hail Mary from Derek Carr, and that's just unacceptable. The Broncos, a team who had only won 4 games last year, won by 1 point. Miami Dolphins game last year, very close game. I'm sure you guys will remember Ryan Fitzpatrick heaving the ball while his face mask is being pulled. Very unfortunate. Also, the Chargers game, lost in overtime. Justin Herbert reaching the ball over the goal line at the end of the game, just insane. And then the Falcons game, they lost 43-6. I remind you, the Falcons had the 4th overall pick in the draft this year and was at the bottom of their division. So that's just utterly embarrassing for the Raiders, who at the time were a playoff team. And then the week before that, they had just barely lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Raiders were the only team to beat the Chiefs besides the Chargers, but the Chiefs were resting all their players. So the only meaningful loss the Chiefs took this season was to the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr and the Raiders defense really came through, which was very odd considering the fact that the Raiders defense was horrific last year and just terrible, but just really some close losses. The Buffalo Bills, a playoff team, they only lost to them by a touchdown. So just unfortunate year all around for the Raiders in some games that they really should have won. But I think that some of it is they did not play very well in primetime games. And for some teams that may not matter. There's some teams that play more primetime games than other. But you're in Las Vegas, one of the best nightlife cities in the country, if not the world, and you're on the Western time zone, so you know you're gonna get a lot of primetime games. And this year, the 2020 schedule released happened not that long ago. A lot of the West Coast teams have the most primetime games. The Seahawks, 49ers, and I believe the Chargers, they all have primetime games. So it's you got to play well in those games, really, and that's when most people are watching, and everybody's watching you, and you got to be the best, whether you have 20,000 people watching you or whether you have 20 million people watching you. It doesn't make a difference. You should be playing up to your best potential every week, and just they got to figure that out this year. They could have possibly 3 or 4 primetime games this year. For sure, 3 games. The Cleveland Browns game is an undecided time game yet. We'll see whether it's played during the day or if it's at night. That will be a very good game, I think. I still think the Browns will take that one. But Derek Carr that last year had a very good season, and it really went unnoticed. He had 4,100 passing yards and 27 touchdowns, 71 QBR. All those stats rank 11th. And being a top 10 quarterback in the NFL is huge. That's a huge accomplishment. There's 16 teams in the NFL. You're in the top half of the NFL, and by a good margin, and that's very impressive. He had a great year last year, but the fall off for the Raiders is not the lack of play. I think that it's the lack of coaching. And John Gruden, in my opinion, is the most overrated coach right now in the NFL, and he's going into his 4th year with the Raiders. Hasn't done much with the Raiders at all, and with his 3 years with the Raiders, he's 19-29. That's not very good at all, considering how hyped up John Gruden was coming back out of retirement, 10 years away from the game of coaching in the broadcast booth, working for ESPN, comes back, and a lot of people excited to see what he does. He's really disappointed, and it kind of goes unnoticed, I feel like. And I'm a big Seahawks fan myself, but everyone has other teams they root for. I like to root for the Raiders a lot, but they're so disappointing and just very inconsistent. And John Gruden is one of the main reasons. The coaching's not there. When you have games when you aren't playing your best, that's one thing. But when you're losing to the Falcons, who had the 4th overall pick in the draft this year, and you went 8-8, you're losing by 37 points. Something's not adding up there, and there's bad days, and then there's just poorly coached games, and there's just some games that they lost that I just really question. And there's also some losses on there that make sense. Losing 25 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the team who win the Super Bowl. I don't really count that as a bad loss, and I don't think anyone will. But I think that the coaching is just so bad. And John Gruden's contract is for 10 years, valued at about $100 million. And if he goes at the same pace he's at right now, in 10 years, John Gruden's record will be 65-95, and that's 59.38% losing and 41.62 win percentage, and that's just not a good margin at all. That's basically 60-40 wins to losses, but you have 60% losses, 40% wins. So that would be horrible, and I think that John Gruden, if he doesn't have a winning record this year, I don't see how they can't fire him. And yes, it's going to be a huge buyout for John Gruden, but there was a risk taken when the Raiders organization and front office decided to hire him as their head coach coming out of retirement, and I think the game's passed him up. 10 years is not a short time at all, and I think that it's definitely passed him up, and it's unfortunate to see. I am a fan of John Gruden. It's just I don't think that he's at his peak performance right now as a head coach in the NFL, and I think that the Raiders organization seriously needs to consider firing him if he has another bad year. And if he has a good year this year, then keep him around, but the lack of consistency is a huge problem in the NFL. You see the best teams; they always have good consistency, and I think that that's what they're gonna need. And if they don't have it, then they got to seriously consider firing John Gruden and moving on to another guy. And it'll be interesting to see who they go out and get if they do. Maybe Brian Daboll, Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, and because that's the argument that I've been hearing is that if they fire John Gruden, who are they going to go out and get? Well, Brian Daboll has won national championships at the college football level. He's won, I believe, 4 or 5 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, so he knows what he's doing. And Derek Carr and Brian Daboll together would be very interesting. Moving on to the Raiders defense, as I mentioned earlier, just a horrific year for them, just especially the defense. Really cost them some of their games. And, the offense didn't play very well, but we all know that they are capable of being a great offense in the NFL. They have so much star power on that team. Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr, and Henry Ruggs. Yes, some of those guys are very young, but right there, those are 3 superstars in the NFL, and they could all be Pro Bowl players, and I don't see any of them having a problem, getting better as they progress, especially Henry Ruggs, who kind of was injured a little bit this year, but once he gets on track, I think that he's going to be a very valuable asset to that team and will probably make some good money and come to when it's time for him to be resigned after his rookie contract. But the team rankings this year are just not impressive right now for the Raiders, and the offense ranked number 20 overall out of 32 teams. That's obviously the bottom half. Defense ranked 20th as well, and just not good. But going into more depth of the defense and more focus, the points allowed, they ranked number 29 in points allowed, just terrible. That's almost very close to dead last. Yards allowed, 25th. Pass yards allowed, 26th. Rushing touchdowns, 30th. And red zone touchdowns, 27th. All those stats are terrible. You can't have a good defense with that. And I think that it's just the defense really held them back this year. We saw the Chiefs this year, they versus the Chiefs in the second time they played them in Las Vegas. They were going down the field, they score a touchdown with I believe a minute 23 left. And a lot of times when you score with a minute 23 left, it's game over possibly. But obviously Patrick Mahomes is a huge factor, but the defense, they let him come down the field so fast. I believe there was 43 seconds left by the time the Kansas City Chiefs scored a touchdown. The middle of the field was wide open, and it was terrible to watch. And I really wanted the Raiders to win that game. And, the defense held them back big time, and they could have beat the Chiefs twice, which is a huge accomplishment. And they have a winning record. I think 9-7 is better than 8-8, clearly, but I think that beating the Super Bowl runner-up twice is, you're doing something right. And that's why I have confidence in the team. Well, as far as the players go, it's just the coaching. I don't know whether to believe in them or not. But, despite all the defense and the offense looking not so great, they got the number 1 special teams. Hey, they look good on special teams. Number 1 ranked special teams. So that's one way to look at it, but that's never a good thing to be the best at is special teams. You want to be the best at offense or defense, but despite all that, there's good with the bad, but right now the bad is not good at all, and they need to improve their defense, really. I think that the offense will perform a lot better when you have the defense performing and helping them out, and it will be nice. They're really just getting outscored every week. And you see the Raiders put up a lot of points on the season, and I think that it's just because the defense is just giving up so many more points than the Raiders can handle, and it's not Derek Carr's fault by any means. I don't think anyone blames the Raiders' downfall or failure, whatever you want to call it, on Derek Carr. I blame it on the defense. Everyone knows the Raiders' defense has struggled, and really ever since Khalil Mack left, it's been not very good and unfortunate. We're going to talk about some free agency right now with the Las Vegas Raiders, and They lost some key offensive linemen, Trent Brown and Roddy Hudson. Trent Brown going to the New England Patriots and Roddy Hudson going to the Arizona Cardinals. Big losses right there. And, it's you don't like to see that happen, but I just think that the Raiders, they had one of the biggest losses of the free agency. They lost some key veteran players that they're going to need for their next season for a lot of the young guys that they have. And I think that losing those guys doesn't help them at all and will really not do them good at all in the long run. They also lost wide receiver Tyrell Williams. He went to the Detroit Lions, and Nelson Aguilar also went to the New England Patriots. So those are some players that they really need. And Tyrell Williams and Nelson Aguilar, yes, they're not the greatest, but there's a big drop off between Henry Ruggs and whoever they have next at their receiving depth chart. And I guarantee you that's going to affect Derek Carr's play a little bit. And I'm a huge fan of Derek Carr, but he can't do it with bad receivers. And I think you need good receivers to have a good quarterback. And, Henry Ruggs will do well, but losing Tyrell Williams and Nelson Aguilar is not going to help. But, you have a stud tight end in Darren Waller, top 3 tight end in the league. That's going to help him big time. They did also gain this year in the offseason a big pickup for them. Kenyon Drake really adds depth to that running back core, but that duo of Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs, both Alabama running backs, is going to be so much fun to watch. Both those guys have very similar play types. They can both catch out the backfield. They're both very quick and fast, and I think that's going to be really good for Derek Carr. They're going to be able to run the ball a lot more than we've ever seen the Raiders run the ball, and it's going to be extremely exciting to watch, and I can't wait to see it. They also got cornerback Casey Hayward, and obviously it shows you that the front office, despite losing a lot of these big veteran name guys, they know what they need, and picking up Casey Hayward, cornerback, is really going to help them a ton, and I'm excited to see what he does with the Las Vegas Raiders. Also signed veteran wide receiver Willie Sneed. Whether he has that big of an impact, I don't know, but I think that it will be nice for the depth, especially after losing both Tyrell Williams and Nelson Aguilar. Moving on to their draft picks, you have the first round. This was one of the more controversial picks in this year's draft class. Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle from Alabama, and I don't see this being as bad as a move as some people say it is. The Raiders have a ton of talented offensive players, and there's mostly in the first round you see offensive players go. Teams need weapons, which makes sense. The Raiders don't really need that as much. Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Derek Carr, they don't check any of the boxes for that, and they lose 2 offensive linemen this year. And so what better to do than go out and get one of the better, if not the best, linemen of this draft class? And that's why people who make the argument that, the Raiders shouldn't have picked Alex Leatherwood, he's a terrible pick, I totally disagree with them. And I think that, yes, that 16th overall pick for a lineman is very early, but at the same time, if that's your team need and you need a offensive lineman, you want to get the best. And why? And look at the Seahawks, my team, who we need defensive linemen, we need offensive linemen, we need cornerbacks, we need safeties, but we go out and get a wide receiver in the second round. That's bad drafting. The Raiders picking up a lineman, which they need in the second round, is great drafting in my opinion. And I just 100% disagree with anyone who says otherwise, that Alex Leatherwood was a bad pick. He'll do great with Derek Carr company. The Raiders have a ton of Alabama players on their team, but despite that, I think that it's going to be helpful for them. And you have weapons, but you don't go out and get a gun without ammo. That's the way I look at it. And hypothetically, I guess you could say Alex Leatherwood is the ammo for the gun, and Derek Carr is going to need protection, and he's getting pretty old, and he's not that old, but who wants to see your franchise quarterback take a career-ending injury or season-ending injury? And no one wants to see that happen at all. And it won't. Hopefully, if they pick up, with that pick, it lessens the chance for sure. In the second round, the Raiders picked up Travon Morig, safety out of TCU. 5 of the 7 draft picks for the Las Vegas Raiders were defensive players, which is very impressive to me, and it shows you the front office is trying to create a good football team. And I think that that's really promising for Raiders fans, that they know that their team, their front office is, they know what their needs are. And I think that the Raiders, despite losing all these guys, Trent Brown, Rodney Hudson, Tyrell Williams, Nelson Aguilar, losing all those guys, they have done the best that they can do. And, they're taking a step forward instead of taking 2 steps backward, and I'm really a fan of it. And I think that the Raiders front office could be one of the best right now. Just after those blows to their roster, after losing all those guys, but a lot of teams would just sit back and say, you know what can we do, and just give up. The Raiders have tried their best. Kenyon Drake has had great years in the NFL. Casey Hayward is a star cornerback, and they can make differences on a football team no matter who they're playing for and no matter who's coaching them. And so I'm really impressed with the Las Vegas Raiders front office. That being said, the 2020 projection for the Las Vegas Raiders is 8-9. I think that they're gonna struggle a little bit with John Gruden as head coach, and I think he could be fired at the end of this year. I truly do. Just think he's holding them back big time, and they need a fresh start. And that's just my opinion. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Thank you.